The scarlet sand whipped against the bioplastic walls of the makeshift field hospital. A strange synthesis of Kithaeron bioarchitecture and human emergency structures. Dr. Mara Corin stared through the translucent membrane that served as a window, watching the red desert storm intensify. The harsh landscape mirrored the turmoil within her. Another failed procedure. Another patient she couldn't save. Mara's four-fingered hands trembled slightly as she removed her surgical cap, revealing the iridescent scales that lined her cranial ridge. She had been on Earth for 3 standard cycles now, and each day seemed to bring fresh disappointments. The Kithaeron Medical Exchange Program was supposed to revolutionize interplanetary healthcare, combining their advanced biotechnology with human medical expertise. Instead, it had become an exercise in frustration. "Your neurotransmitter levels are dangerously elevated," chirped her health monitor. "Recommended action, calming protocol." Mara silenced the device with an irritated flick. The last thing she needed was her own technology diagnosing her emotional state. The Kithaeron prided themselves on their rational approach to medicine, but after months of watching patients deteriorate despite their most sophisticated treatments, even her species' legendary composure was failing. She made her way through the hospital corridors, a series of organically grown chambers that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Human staff members nodded respectfully as she passed, but she noted their expressions, the same mixture of awe and distrust that had greeted the Kithaeron medical team since their arrival. To them. Kithaeron medicine was indistinguishable from magic, yet it had proven woefully inadequate against certain Earth pathogens and injuries. "Dr. Corin," called a voice from behind her. "The new admission is ready for evaluation." Mara turned to see a young human nurse, clipboard in hand. The identification badge read, "On Thu." Mara had worked with her several times, a competent professional with an unusually open mind toward Kithaeron techniques. "I've reviewed the preliminary scan," Mara replied, her translator module converting her native clicks and whistles into smooth English. "Chemical burns with extensive necrotic spread. Standard Kithaeron regenerative protocols should be sufficient." Thu's expression flickered. "With respect, Doctor, this case may be different. The patient was exposed to a compound we haven't encountered before. It's from one of the new mining operations." Mara felt a familiar tightness in her chest. Anxiety. The humans called it. An emotion she had become intimately familiar with on this planet. "Show me," she said. The patient was young, perhaps in his early 20s by human standards. His chart identified him as Kale Nguyen, a mining technician. He lay unconscious, breath shallow, a complex array of monitoring equipment surrounding his bed, some human, some Kithaeron, neither set displaying encouraging readings. But it was the wound that caught Mara's attention. Starting at his right shoulder and spreading across his chest was a map of devastation. The chemical burn had eaten through layers of skin and muscle, leaving behind tissue that was neither dead nor alive, but caught in some horrific in-between state. The edges pulsed with an unnatural blue-black coloration that seemed to spread even as she watched. "How long?" she asked. "Exposure was approximately 12 hours ago." Thu answered, "The spread rate has increased by 17% in the last hour alone." Mara's specialized vision could detect the cellular breakdown happening in real time. Whatever this chemical was, it was unlike anything in the Kithaeron medical database. She placed her diagnostic scanner over the wound, watching as the holographic display mapped the damage in 3 dimensions. "Has anyone contacted Dr. Selron?" she asked, referring to the hospital director and head of the Kithaeron medical team. "He's been notified. He's reviewing the case remotely," as if summoned by his name. The communication panel on the wall activated, revealing the stern visage of Dr. Selran. His cranial ridge was more pronounced than Mara's, a sign of his advanced age and status. "Dr. Corin, I've reviewed the patient's data," he said without preamble. "The compound appears to be a derivative of Earth's resource extraction technologies combined with elements we've not catalogued." "Do we have a treatment protocol?" Mara asked. Selran's expression, subtle to human eyes but clear to a fellow Kitharin, conveyed grave concern. "Our regenerative therapies will be ineffective. The compound is specifically targeting cellular mitochondria in a way that counteracts our standard approaches." "So what do we do?" Mara pressed, glancing at the patient. Kale's vital signs were weakening by the minute. "We've consulted with the Kitharin High Medical Council," Selran replied. "Their recommendation is palliative care only. This case is beyond our current capabilities." Mara felt a surge of anger, an emotion that would have shocked her colleagues back on Kitharia. "You're suggesting we simply let him die?" "I'm suggesting we accept the limitations of our knowledge. Dr. Corin, not every condition can be cured. Even with our advanced technology, it would be unethical to give false hope." The communication ended, leaving Mara staring at the blank panel. She turned to find Thu watching her, the nurse's expression unreadable. "Is there nothing to be done?" Thu asked quietly. Mara gestured toward the wound. "The chemical is continuing to spread. It's destroying cellular structures faster than they can regenerate. Our most advanced regenerative protocols would only accelerate the damage at this point." She hesitated. "I'm sorry, but Dr. Selran is correct. We should prepare palliative measures." Thu seemed to be wrestling with something. "Dr. Corin, may I speak with you privately?" "Curious." Mara followed the nurse to a small storage area adjacent to the treatment room, once the door sealed behind them. Thu reached into her uniform pocket and withdrew a small fabric pouch. "What is that?" Mara asked. Thu carefully opened the pouch, revealing several dried leaves. They were deep green with purple-tinged edges, unremarkable to Mara's eyes. This is tubi leaf," Thu explained. "It grows in the northern mountains where I'm from. My grandmother was a traditional healer who used it for severe burns and infections." Mara's scientific training immediately asserted itself. "Nurse Thu, I understand your concern, but folk remedies—" "With respect, Doctor—" Thu interrupted, a boldness in her voice that surprised Mara. "Your technologies have failed. Our Western medicines have failed. Before we give up on this patient, shouldn't we try everything available to us?" Mara studied the unassuming leaves. "What evidence do you have of its efficacy?" "In my village, it saved many lives during the chemical spills from the old factories. The properties haven't been formally studied because the plant only grows in very specific conditions, but I've seen it work." Thu hesitated. "My brother would have lost his arm without it." Mara's training urged caution, skepticism, adherence to protocol, but the memory of countless failed treatments these past months weighed heavily against those instincts. "The hospital regulations forbid unauthorized treatments," Mara said slowly. "Dr. Selran would never approve." Thu's gaze was steady. "Then we don't ask for approval." The suggestion was so contrary to Kitharin medical ethics that Mara almost laughed. On her world, medical protocols were sacrosanct, established through rigorous testing and approved by councils of experts. To circumvent them was unthinkable. And yet, here she was, considering exactly that. "How would it be administered?" she asked finally. Relief flooded Thu's expression. "The leaves need to be crushed into a paste and applied directly to the wound. There's a specific technique my grandmother taught me. Mara glanced back toward the treatment room where Kale lay dying. "If we're caught, I'll take full responsibility," Thu said firmly. "That won't be necessary," Mara replied. "If we do this, we do it together. But not yet. We need to wait until the night shift when there's less supervision. And I want to run some preliminary tests on the leaves first, to ensure they won't accelerate the damage." Thu nodded, carefully returning the pouch to her pocket. "Thank you for being willing to try." As Mara returned to her duties, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just crossed a line, one that separated the physician she had been trained to be from the physician she was becoming on this complicated, frustrating, fascinating planet. The laboratory was nearly deserted during the midnight shift. Mara had sent most of the staff to assist with a minor emergency in another wing, a convenient distraction she had orchestrated by accidentally recalibrating one of the sensitive Kitharin diagnostic machines. It wouldn't cause any harm, but it would create enough confusion to keep attention away from her activities. Under the pale blue light of her workstation, Mara carefully analyzed the chemical structure of Thu's leaves. The results were puzzling. The plant contained compounds she had never encountered before, complex organic molecules that seemed to reconfigure themselves in response to different stimuli. "Fascinating," she murmured. The plant had evolved a remarkable defense mechanism against the harsh chemical environment of Earth's polluted regions. When exposed to toxins, it produced countermeasures specific to the threat. But would it work against the chemical destroying Kale's tissues? Mara ran simulation after simulation, watching as the virtual compounds interacted. The results were inconclusive. The leaf extract neither definitively helped nor harmed in the simulations. The laboratory door slid open, and Thu entered, her expression tense. "His condition is deteriorating rapidly. Dr. Selron has ordered comfort measures only." Mara looked at her inconclusive data, then at the small pile of leaves on her workspace. Science had failed to provide a clear answer. Now she had to decide whether to trust in something else entirely: human intuition and ancestral knowledge. "Prepare the treatment according to your grandmother's methods," she said finally. "I'll create a diversion to get access to the patient." Thu nodded, relief and determination mingling in her expression. She set to work crushing the leaves in a small mortar, adding tiny amounts of water until a thick paste formed. The scent was subtle but distinctive, earthy, with notes of something Mara couldn't identify. "It's ready," Thu said, transferring the paste to a sterile container. Mara checked the hospital's security schedule on her tablet. The systems will run a diagnostic cycle at 00200 hours. There's a 3-minute window when the patient monitoring will be offline. That's our opportunity. They made their way through the dimly lit corridors, the hospital quieter now as most patients slept. Outside Kale's room, Mara hesitated, the full weight of what they were about to do suddenly overwhelming. "This violates everything I was taught," she whispered. Thu touched her arm gently, a human gesture of reassurance that Mara had come to appreciate. Sometimes healing requires us to look beyond what we were taught. Inside, Kale's condition had visibly worsened. The chemical damage had spread further across his chest, the unnatural blue-black coloration now reaching toward his neck. His breathing was labored, each inhale a struggle. Mara checked the monitoring equipment. 2 minutes until the diagnostic cycle. Thu stood ready with the paste, her hands steady despite the risk they were taking. When the monitors beeped and briefly went dark for the system reboot, they moved quickly. Thu applied the paste to the wound with practiced movements, spreading it in a specific pattern while murmuring words in a language Mara's translator couldn't interpret. The paste changed color as it contacted the damaged tissue, shifting from green to a luminescent purple. Mara watched in fascination as the reaction spread across the wound's surface. "Is that normal?" she whispered. Thu nodded. "The change in color means it's working. We need to cover it now." They carefully placed a transparent Kitharin healing membrane over the treated area just as the monitors came back online. Mara quickly adjusted the settings to mask any unusual readings that might trigger alerts. "Now we wait," Thu said. They didn't have to wait long. Within 20 minutes, Mara's specialized vision detected changes at the cellular level. The relentless progression of the chemical damage had slowed, then halted. At the edges of the wound, healthy cells were beginning to regenerate. "It's working," she breathed in astonishment. Thu smiled. "My grandmother would say the plant knows what the body needs." By morning, the improvement was dramatic enough that even conventional monitoring could detect it. Kale's vital signs had stabilized, and the wound's discoloration had receded significantly. Mara modified her official reports, attributing the improvement to a specialized application of Kitharin regenerative protocols, but her deception was short-lived. By midday, Dr. Selran arrived to witness the miraculous recovery himself. "Explain this," he demanded, looking from the healing patient to Mara. "Yesterday, this case was terminal. Today, he shows significant regeneration of tissue that should be impossible given the nature of the chemical exposure." Mara had prepared for this moment, constructing a plausible explanation involving a modified treatment protocol she had theoretically developed. But as she began her carefully rehearsed response, Thu stepped forward. "It was my doing, Dr. Selran," she said. "I applied a traditional earth remedy to the wound." Selran's expression shifted from surprise to outrage. "You did what? Without authorization? Without testing?" "I authorized it," Mara interjected, unwilling to let Thu face the consequences alone. "As the attending physician, I made the judgment call when all approved protocols had failed." The hospital director's cranial ridge flushed with the dark blue coloration that indicated extreme displeasure among Kitharians. "You've violated the most fundamental principles of our medical ethics. Dr. Corin, folk remedies, untested plant matter. This is precisely the kind of unscientific approach we came to Earth to help them move beyond." "And yet," Mara replied evenly, gesturing to Kale's steadily healing wound, "it worked when our advanced technology failed." Selran's face hardened. "Both of you are suspended pending a full investigation. The Kitharin High Medical Council will be informed of this breach of protocol." After he stormed out, Thu turned to Mara, distress evident in her expression. "I'm sorry. I never meant for you to risk your position." "Don't apologize for saving a life," Mara replied. "But we need to understand exactly what happened here. The interaction between the leaves and the chemical compound wasn't just effective, it was remarkable. There's something happening at the molecular level that neither of our medical traditions fully comprehends." Before they could discuss further, alarms began blaring throughout the hospital. The emergency communication system activated. "Attention all personnel. Civil unrest has reached Sector 7. Security protocols activated. All non-essential staff evacuate to designated safe zones." The tensions that had been simmering between certain Earth factions and the Kitharin presence had finally boiled over. Through the window, Mara could see smoke rising from the settlement adjacent to the hospital. We need to secure the patients," she said, professional instincts overriding her suspended status. For the next several hours, chaos reigned as the hospital staff worked to protect vulnerable patients and maintain critical care. The Kitharin security forces established a perimeter, but the sound of conflict outside grew steadily closer. In the midst of the crisis, Mara received an urgent alert from Kale's monitoring system. The chemical reaction had unexpectedly reactivated, spreading rapidly through his system. When she reached his room, she found him convulsing, the wound site emanating the same blue-black coloration as before, but now pulsing with an ominous rhythm. What's happening? Thu asked, rushing in behind her. Mara's scanner showed a horrifying progression. The chemical compound has mutated, adapting to the treatment. It's spreading through his bloodstream now. We need more of the leaf paste, Thu said, reaching for her pouch. There's no time to prepare it, Mara replied, watching Kale's vitals plummet. And I'm not sure it would work against this new manifestation. The building shook as something exploded nearby. The lights flickered, and several of the monitoring systems went offline temporarily. In the momentary darkness, Mara made a decision. The Kitharin regenerative field, she said. We need to combine it with the leaf compounds at a molecular level. Thu looked uncertain. How? We don't have the equipment to synthesize. Not synthesize, Mara interrupted. Direct application. The field can be calibrated to enhance biological processes. If we apply the leaves directly to the wound while the field is active. It was a desperate plan, born of desperation and intuition rather than science. Everything Mara had been taught said it shouldn't work, that combining unproven earth remedies with Kitharin technology was dangerous, unpredictable. But Kale was dying, and conventional wisdom had already failed him once. With the hospital in disarray due to the security situation, no one noticed as Mara activated the portable regenerative field generator, an advanced piece of Kitharin technology normally used only under strict protocols. As the pale blue field enveloped Kale's body, Thu crushed the remaining leaves directly onto the wound site. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. The leaves seemed to dissolve, their cellular structure breaking down and reforming within the influence of the Kitharin field. A brilliant purple light emanated from the wound as the plant compounds fused with the regenerative energy, creating something entirely new. Kale's body arched, then relaxed as the combined therapy spread through his system. On Mara's scanner, she could see the chemical toxin being neutralized, molecular bonds breaking apart as the hybrid treatment targeted it with remarkable precision. It's working, Thu whispered in awe. For several tense minutes, they watched as Kale's body responded to the treatment. The wound site began to heal visibly, healthy pink tissue replacing the damaged areas with astonishing speed. His vital signs stabilized, then strengthened. When Dr. Selran found them, the evidence of their unauthorized experiment was impossible to hide. The regenerative field hummed softly, illuminating the room with its distinctive blue glow, while the remains of Thu's leaves were clearly visible on the now healing wound. But instead of the anger they expected, Selran's expression showed something rarely seen on a Kitharin face: uncertainty. Explain what I'm seeing, he said. Quietly, Mara straightened, ready to defend their actions. A combination of Kitharin regenerative technology and earth botanical compounds. The interaction created a treatment effective against the chemical toxin, where both approaches failed individually. Selran studied the scanner readings, his scientific curiosity temporarily overriding his administrative outrage. This shouldn't be possible. The molecular integration is unlike anything in our database. That's because we've never truly integrated our approaches. Mara replied, We came to Earth believing our methods were superior, that we had nothing to learn from human medicine, especially traditional practices. These are untested, unproven folk remedies. Selran protested, but his tone lacked conviction. Thu stepped forward. With respect, they've been tested through generations of use, just not in your laboratories. The hospital shook again as another explosion sounded outside, closer this time. The civil unrest was worsening. "This discussion will have to wait," Selran said, his practical nature reasserting itself. "We need to evacuate critical patients. Dr. Corin, despite your suspension, your expertise is needed. Nurse Thu, continue monitoring this patient. Document everything about this treatment." As Selran left to coordinate the evacuation, Mara and Thu exchanged a glance of cautious hope. The immediate crisis had provided a reprieve from disciplinary action, but the larger question of their experimental treatment remained unresolved. Over the next 12 hours, the hospital staff worked tirelessly to protect their patients from the conflict raging outside. The Kitharin security forces eventually established a safe perimeter, allowing medical operations to stabilize. Throughout the crisis, Kale's condition continued to improve remarkably. By the following morning, he had regained consciousness, with no trace of the chemical toxin in his system. The wound that had once seemed fatal was now healing cleanly, with minimal scarring. Word of the miraculous recovery spread quickly through the hospital, particularly among the human staff. Soon, other nurses and doctors were approaching Thu and Mara, sharing traditional remedies from their own cultures that might complement Kitharin techniques. 3 days after the treatment, Mara was summoned to appear before a joint panel of Kitharin medical authorities and Earth health officials. She entered the conference room, expecting to defend herself against charges of protocol violations and unethical experimentation. Instead, she found a group of scientists gathered around holographic displays of Kale's tissue samples. Engaged in animated discussion, Dr. Selran motioned her forward. "Dr. Corin, we've been analyzing the interaction between the Earth plant compounds and our regenerative field. The results are unprecedented." On the display, Mara could see the molecular structures created by their improvised treatment, complex, adaptive compounds unlike anything in either Earth or Kitharin pharmacology. The plant's evolutionary adaptations to Earth's polluted environments, combined with our regenerative technology, created a targeted response to the chemical toxin, explained one of the Earth scientists. "It's as if the two approaches communicated with each other at a molecular level. We've begun testing similar combinations against other treatment-resistant conditions," added a Kitharin researcher. "The preliminary results are promising." Mara looked from face to face, struggling to process this unexpected turn. "I don't understand. I violated protocols. I expected to be disciplined, possibly sent back to Kitharia." Dr. Selran's expression was complex, a mixture of lingering disapproval and reluctant admiration. "Make no mistake, Dr. Corin, your actions were unprecedented and potentially dangerous, but the results cannot be ignored. The Kitharin High Medical Council has authorized a formal research initiative to explore these hybrid approaches, and the Earth Medical Alliance has agreed to contribute our traditional knowledge to the project," added a human official, "including documenting remedies like Nurse Thu's that have never been formally studied." Mara thought of all the patients she had lost, all the frustration of the past months when Kitharin medicine had proven inadequate against Earth's unique challenges. "So instead of being punished, I'm being asked to continue this work under proper supervision and protocols," Selran clarified firmly. "What you did was still reckless, but sometimes innovation requires a certain willingness to challenge established wisdom." Coming from Selran, this was a remarkable concession. Kitharin medical culture prized methodical research above all, viewing improvisation as dangerously unscientific. "And Nurse Thu," Mara asked, "has been appointed as the lead Earth consultant for the traditional remedies aspect of the project," replied one of the human officials. "Her knowledge will be essential." As the meeting continued, Mara found herself looking out the window at the red desert beyond the hospital. The landscape that had once seemed so alien, so hostile, now appeared differently to her eyes. Hidden within its harsh environment were plants that had evolved remarkable properties, just as Thu's leaves had developed their healing capabilities in response to Earth's pollution. Perhaps that was the lesson she had needed to learn. Adaptation wasn't just about bringing Kithaerin knowledge to Earth, but about allowing that knowledge to evolve through contact with Earth's wisdom, both scientific and traditional. When Mara visited Kale later that day, she found him sitting up in bed. Color returned to his face. Thu was there, explaining to him the unprecedented treatment that had saved his life. "So I'm some kind of medical miracle?" he asked, looking between them with a mixture of gratitude and wonder. "You're the beginning of something new," Mara replied. "A bridge between worlds." In the weeks that followed, the Joint Research Initiative formalized its structure and began systematic testing of combined approaches. Thu's traditional knowledge was documented alongside rigorous scientific analysis, creating a new framework that respected both empirical evidence and generational wisdom. Other Kithaerin doctors, initially skeptical, became intrigued as more successful cases emerged. Earth practitioners, who had been reluctant to adopt alien technology, found themselves more open to integration when their own traditions were acknowledged and respected. 6 months after Kale's treatment, Mara stood in the new Hybrid Medicine Research Center, watching as human and Kithaerin scientists worked side by side. The center had been established in the wake of their success, a permanent installation dedicated to combining the best of both worlds. Thu joined her, carrying a tray of seedlings, descendants of the plant that had started it all, now being cultivated for research and treatment. "They're adapting well to the controlled environment," Thu remarked. "My grandmother would be amazed to see her healing plants in such a place." Mara studied the unassuming green shoots. "Do you think she would approve, taking traditional knowledge into this scientific context?" Thu considered the question seriously. She always said that healing doesn't belong to any one person or tradition, that it finds its way to those who need it. I think she would see this as her knowledge finding a new path. Through the laboratory window, Mara could see Kale working with a group of researchers. He had joined the project after his recovery, determined to help prevent others from suffering as he had. "We still have so much to learn from each other," Mara said. "This is just the beginning." The red desert stretched beyond the facility's walls, harsh and challenging as ever. But Mara no longer saw it as an alien landscape to be conquered with Kithaerin technology. Instead, it was a teacher, offering lessons in adaptation and resilience to those willing to listen. Just as she had needed to learn that healing sometimes came from the most unexpected sources, even a simple leaf applied by hands guided by ancient wisdom. The communication panel on her wrist chimed, displaying a message from the Kithaerin High Medical Council. They had reviewed the latest research results and were expanding the initiative to other Earth locations, with Mara appointed as the program director. Thu read the message over her shoulder and smiled. "It seems your people are finally beginning to understand what my grandmother always knew, that medicine is a conversation between healer and patient, between tradition and innovation, not a monologue." Mara thought about how far she had come from the frustrated, exhausted doctor who had been ready to give up on a dying patient. How a simple act of trust, trusting Thu, trusting in knowledge outside her training, had opened a door to possibilities she had never imagined. "The most effective healing," she said, recalling words Thu had shared from her grandmother's teachings, "happens when we remember that wisdom resides in many places, not just one." Outside, the red sands of Earth swirled in the wind, carrying with them seeds of plants that had evolved to survive in the harshest conditions, plants whose secrets were only now beginning to be understood by those wise enough to look beyond their own knowledge and see the healing potential that had been there all along. In the gleaming laboratory behind them, human and Kithaerin worked together, no longer separated by assumptions of superiority or distrust, but united in the most fundamental goal of all medical traditions across the stars: to heal, to comfort, to save lives by whatever means wisdom provided. And it had all begun with a desperate choice in a darkened hospital room, a doctor at the end of her confidence, a nurse holding ancestral knowledge in her hands, and a simple green leaf that bridged the gap between worlds.